Good morning, this is the Desert Shaman, otherwise known as Roger Thunder or Thunder Wakia. I thought I would do a video today on a topic that has arisen that I think needs attention, and that would be the weaponization of gender or the weaponization of sex, which is being currently pursued by the powers to be. Recently, we had a school shooting by a supposed transgender person. Well, you know, this is a very complex subject. I've done videos in the past on energy, okay, the masculine and the feminine, or the yin and the yang, or the duality, or the goddess energy and the god energy. Again, it's defined as masculine and feminine. And I said there was much confusion. I think I should do this as a preface for the video that I'm attempting to do here to inform people as to what's really going on. So I've talked about consciousness, and I've talked about pure awareness, and I've talked about higher frequencies, and I've talked about energy in particular. It's all about energy, okay? And so you have the yin and the yang energy, the female energy and the male energy. And when you're a long-time meditator or a long-time spiritual seeker, you realize that we all have both of these energies in our body, or in our being, or in our presence, or in our aura, or in our manifestation of who we think we are. We have both of these energies. The goddess energy is a very healing energy, as well as the God energy, okay? Now, it's best to be in balance. Let me just state that right from the get-go here. It's best to have a balance of that energy within yourself. You don't want to be too much to the yin or too much to the yang. You want to kind of stay right down the middle of the road, okay? Now, we're born into specific bodies, okay? We have the male body and the female body, or the male sex and the female sex. So people sometimes get confused when they feel, let's say, a predominance of the yin energy, the receptive, the dark. That's how it's defined in ancient literature. Or the male energy, which is more aggressive and penetrating and light, okay? But this is speaking of the duality of energies that are in the universe. So it's all about energy, and it's just energy, okay? So no one should get fearful or upset if they're experiencing one kind of energy and get confused and think that because they're feeling one kind of energy that they have to change their physical being or have their physical being, let's say, operated on to make it in accordance with that energy that they're feeling. In other words, if you're a man and you're feeling the goddess energy, that doesn't mean that you got to go right out and have an operation to change your physical being. Or that doesn't mean if you're a woman and you're feeling the male energy, that you have to somehow change your physical being. It's a matter of achieving balance, okay? We're all pure consciousness. We're all pure awareness. The physical is almost irrelevant. It's almost irrelevant. So I thought I would start off with those kind of definitions as to how I think people get confused, okay? Now, there's a lot of reason that people get confused, and it could have to do with upbringing as well. There have been very prominent psychologists, such as Sigmund Freud and Jung, who tried to broach this subject, and even Freud changed positions on his outlook about how people identify and that type of thing. That's a real deep subject, and I'm just scratching the surface here. But it can be much ado about nothing. Let's put it that way. It's much ado about nothing. It's all energy. We're all energy. We're all in the duality. And at one time we can feel more of the feminine energy, and at another time we can feel more of the masculine energy. The polarity, okay? It's a polarity. It's like a battery. You need both polarities to work. You can't have just negative on a battery or it won't work. You can't just have positive on a battery or it won't work. You have to have both the positive and the negative. You have to have a balance. Now, having said that, we're going to jump right into the gender issue and the sex and gender. Are these two things separate? Well, if you go back to the very beginning of when this was supposedly defined, you find out that yes, sex and gender were words that used to define the male and the female organism, or the male and the female physical being. And yes, they talk about X and Y chromosomes and all that stuff, the scientists. But from the very beginning, it was an accepted fact, or an accepted scientific fact, that gender referred to sex, and sex referred to gender. In other words, if you were of the male gender, or the female gender, or the male sex, or the female sex, okay? Which is obvious by the construction of the body and what is evident, let's put it that way, what kind of equipment one has, okay? But when you get to a higher level of consciousness, again, you realize that all we are beings, or a spiritual manifestation in a physical body. Well, what's a physical body? It's just a lower manifestation of the higher realms. Bear with me here. So in our society today, let me go back to let me not drop this thought about the gender and the sex definitions. So at some point, okay, in, like I say, the original meaning, or the original accepted meaning, those were both the same thing. But somewhere in the 70s, in the 1970s, to the, let's say, 2010, all of a sudden this term gender took on a different meaning, or was starting to take on a different meaning. And one of the proponents, or one of the people that started that trend, was a guy named John Money, if you can believe that, John Money. And he was, I think he was a Norwegian psychologist or whatever, and he started defining gender as more than just sex. He started defining gender in a different way, and so he started using the terms gender identity and things like that. This was a very liberal person, very I'm not out to judge this person or anything, but he was just another psychologist that was trying to redefine, for whatever reasons he had, maybe personal. The gender was more than sex. It was a means of identifying oneself as either a male or female. But my point here is that things arise, okay, that can be more confusing than they are defining, or they can be more confusing than they are, let's say, non-confusing, okay? So all of a sudden, other things came into effect, like the women's right movement, the feminist movement, that type of thing, which had a quarrel originally with women not being on an equal basis with men and not receiving the same amount of pay and jobs, and just having a bone to pick with men in general, as that they were a privileged class, or a privileged sort of, let's say, organism on the earth, all right? So this started off as kind of an okay thing. I think it started back in the 70s. It started off as kind of an okay thing where, yes, I mean, if a woman's doing the same job as a man, she should get paid equally. If she's just as competent, okay, that type of thing. However, as things go, just like with John Money and his definitions of gender and sex, and with the feminist movement and their definitions of what should be, we get into things like role playing. What's role playing? Well, think of an actor or actress that's playing a certain role. When they do that role, they get into it almost on an energetic level. Let's say that some actor, and there's been movies out like Tootsie and stuff like that with Dustin Hoffman, and where the character actually played a female in the role, okay? And it's a role. Let me emphasize that. It's a role. So we get into role playing, okay? And we get into, now what happens when you play a role? Well, you change your, if you've ever watched a movie, if you ever watched a good actor or actress, when they're playing a role, their energy almost changes. In fact, they go into kind of a shape shift. They kind of, they act a certain way. And they appear to be a certain way because they're changing their energy. They're changing their energy field for that role, okay? Just like if a male actor plays a role of a killer or plays a role of a villain, then he projects that certain energy on the screen. Life is just a screen. It's just a projector. It's the divine projecting light, shadows and light on the surface of a screen. So Now let's fast forward to what's going on today. A lot of young people have decided that they want to identify as, if they're a male, they might want to identify as a female, or if they're a female, they might want to identify as a man. Well, where did all this stuff come from? Well, then we go back to Freud trying to determine how people have certain, what he called, perverted behavior. What's perverted mean? Well, perverted means outside the accepted norm, okay, of sexuality, mostly. Outside the accepted norm of sexuality. A perversion of what is accepted or what is in society as the norm, okay? A perversion of that. So consequently, you know, when people announce that they were gay or announce that they were this or that, or you can even take it to the extreme, where some people prefer younger members of the opposite sex, so young that it got to be another definition of pedophilia, okay? This is a perversion of the sexual norm, okay? Now, I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm not here to say that this is right or this is wrong. I'm not here to condemn. And I'm not here to say you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. That's up to each individual. So now let's consider individual taste and what people choose to do in this society, okay? People might choose to be bisexual, or people might choose to be a certain way, or let's say a perversion of the norm. They might choose that. And that's okay if they decide to choose that, okay, as long as they don't bring harm to other people, or as long as they, let's say, are humble and have a sense of humility about the situation, all right? In other words, I'm not saying being in the closet, so to speak. I'm just saying not flaunting what you feel your desires are on other people. Just like religion. It's like you're trying to force a religion or a belief system on somebody else. What you do in the privacy of your own bedroom or in the privacy of your own home is up to you. It's not up to other people to say, you can do this or you can do that. Okay? Now, the reason that I gave this preface to this video, or this introduction about energy and all that kind of thing, is so that people might necessarily might not make choices that they necessarily think that they should. And you know, by let's say their upbringing. Here's another thing that has an effect on people's choice. They might have had an experience in their younger days, impressionable years, that type of thing, where they were exposed to a certain type of behavior, or where something was forced on them as a certain part, you know, type of behavior, which they had no control over it when they were young and in their prepubescent years, or around the years of puberty. Or there's so many factors. You can consider relationships with children with one parent or the other. Let's say that a young woman was close to her father, and he was very nurturing to her. Usually that portends that the woman, when she grows up, is going to have a good relationship with men, and vice versa. But the jury's out on all this stuff, because the only information that we have on these kind of things is our psychologists, and psychologists are just as confused as anybody else. Mainly, a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists get into the profession because they have issues with their self, and they're trying to they figure, well, if I go into the profession, I'll figure all this stuff out and it'll help me. But the problem is, most psychiatrists and psychologists that I know of are just as confused as anybody else, okay? So if you want to eliminate confusion on this level, you just look at yourself as a consciousness in a body. And that consciousness is yin and yang. It's within the duality. That energy that is in us all is male and female, because we have that in our DNA. We have the mother and the father, and we have the mother and father influence. So what is it that urges people to go to extremes, okay, in this situation? And we've seen it with movie stars and everything else, getting sex change operations, going to extremes, putting too much emphasis on the physical rather than the spiritual. And the spiritual, again, if you understand it from a high level of consciousness, is just energy, okay? And if you feel like you're the goddess energy one minute and the god energy the next, that's a fluctuation, okay? And that fluctuation just sometimes one becomes predominant and the other becomes predominant. And so when that certain energy is predominant, then people they might get scared, or if they feel that energy, they might think that that's what they should be. They should be just that energy. And so they get confused, okay? And this confusion permeates their being to where they take extreme measures and start acting in certain ways and start role-playing, okay? It's just a role. So having said all this, let me jump to the next segment here. I felt I had to kind of enlighten people as to what's going on that level. But let's jump to the next level of weaponizing sex. Now, the powers to be, the ones that are in control, know very well that there's these kind of energies in the universe, and they know very well how to manipulate people's feelings into confusion about these energies. Instead of a balanced viewpoint, they're masters at manipulating. And they're masters at brainwashing, and they're masters at influencing, and they're masters at all of these things. And they start agendas, okay? They may have been the original ones that started the trans LGBT movement, okay, to divide. Now, this is always about division. It's not about unification. When you start a movement, when you say that this particular group of people is shunned, or this particular group of people is being attacked, or this particular group of people is not treated like they should be, or this particular group of people is persecuted and made to feel unequal, or made to feel non-relevant, okay, then this causes a division. This is the perfect opportunity for division, okay? It's just like the Black Lives Matter, the LGBTQ, whatever definition you want to put on there. A definition is dangerous, because once you got a definition, then you can institute an opposing force. So basically what I'm saying here is that throughout recent history, or what we are seeing now, is a weaponization of different factions, okay? So you have the left and the right, and you have the in politics, and you have you have the gay and the straight, and you have the black and the white, and you have the red man, and the you have all these different factions that the powers to be can easily see can be divided and turned against one another. That's exactly what they're doing, okay? So you got terms like male toxicity. You got all kinds of terms coming. There is no such thing as male toxicity. Get it through your head, okay? It's just a term that they brought up to use to demonize the gender or the sex of the male, or the role of the male, okay? And you got people on the other side that want to make women bad, or they want to put women in the light of, like, say, feminism or whatever. All these terms, all these labels, they're all bullshit. Is what they are. And they're used to divide and conquer. They're used to weaponize. They're used to harm and hurt, okay? They're not used for unity. They're not coming from a high spiritual conscious level. They're coming from very low, mundane, physical level, okay? And then you got like this latest shooting where they're even first they said, this latest shooting in Nashville, first they said it was a woman. Then then it came out later, no, it was trans, a trans person, transgender, or, in the old days they were called transvestites. In the old days they were called a whole lot of other names, okay? So what is the agenda here? What is the agenda with all of a sudden? And here's another thing on the agenda. These people that are supposedly identifying with this LGBT, I'm not even sure I got those initials right because I never even use them, but you know what I mean. Now they're getting people that identify with this movement as being somehow, they want these people to feel fearful of being attacked and actually killed, okay? Now, last time I checked, there wasn't a whole lot of mass slayings of these people that identify this way, or let's say are playing this role. To me, hasn't been a whole lot of mass killings in this regard. And even some of the killings, okay, or mass shootings or whatever that have been said were against these people, like the nightclub down in Florida years ago, that type of thing, have been uncovered to reveal that no, that wasn't exactly the type of place where just a certain type of people went. So basically what they're doing is they're twisting and turning and twisting and turning and pushing this agenda of that you need to fear for your life if you identify as a certain sex or gender, okay, that is opposed to what the body you were born in. Let's put it that way. The physical being that you were born in. So they're weaponizing these movements, okay, and they even got T-shirts out, you know, with this movement is wearing now with guns on them. Now you would think that the last person in the world who would ever want to have anything to do with guns would be these type of people. Wrong. Because now they're using the firearm thing in conjunction with the gender thing. And they're actually urging people to go out, and even politicians have said this. It's kind of unbelievable. But they're urging people that, you know, if you don't want to be killed or if you don't want to be harmed, go out and, let's say they're telling this crew, the LGBT crew, go out and hunt Christians because Christians are diametrically opposed to what you are or what, you know, what you claim yourself to be, what your belief system, what your role-playing is. Well, the Christians are just the opposite of that, and they're moralists, and they're supreme, live by the letter of the Bible type people, and this is bad and that's bad. And I've said before, religion divides people too. It's too moralistic, it's too straight-laced, it's too non-spiritual, doesn't come from that higher level of consciousness, okay? So what they've done is they've turned the Christian element against the people that choose to be in this community of gay people, or people that identify with a different energy and are stuck on that energy, okay? How can this all be solved? Okay, well, it can all be solved by people realizing that whatever they do, whatever they, you know, whatever role they're playing, they need to, you know, they need to, on a sexual level, keep it in the bedroom, okay? And not flaunt whatever your confusion is or whatever your role is. Don't flaunt it. Which brings me to the point of things like gay pride, the term gay pride, and gay pride parades down the street. Do you see people out in the street saying heterosexual pride and, you know, pride in just being a man or a woman? First of all, the word pride can denote, yes, you can take pride in being, let's say, a musician or an artist. You take pride in your work, which is a whole different meaning, a whole different concept. But then there's the pride goeth before a fall type thing, where you get too egotistical and too into yourself, and thinking that you need to parade in the streets half naked and do, you know, lascivious acts and perverted acts and in front of children and all kinds of things. Which brings me to another thing that I want to mention here, this LGBT group of people that have infiltrated themselves into the school systems and are performing different things in front of kids, you know, cross-dressing and men dressing up like women and women dressing up like men. and saying this is okay. The extreme is okay. Being in the extreme is okay. And here you got a kid hasn't even reached the age of puberty, being exposed, okay, to all kinds of role playing and all kinds of transgenderism and bisexuality, and so they're getting immediately influenced by this, and then they're taking it even a step further and saying, well, if you're a kid and you're a male and you want to be a woman or you want to be a female, change your physical being, change your physical how you present yourself physically, get a sex change, get cut into. So you see, they've taken this basic premise of what I'm saying, the beautiful balanced way of looking at things, as that you're a spirit in a body, and it's either a male or female body, and the male can experience female energy, and the female can experience male energy. But this is all about inner alchemy. It's all about energy. It's all about balancing the energy. Okay, even the Chinese say if you get too much yin or too much yang, you open yourself up for sickness. Okay, on all levels. So rather than having a healthy view and teaching kids, okay, hey, you're a male or you're a female, but you might feel the other energy, you might feel the other vibe, you might feel the other feeling within you. Nothing to get alarmed about. It's a normal thing that people go through. And even like famous yogis, okay, that go through meditation and go through the, let's say, kriya, or the raising of the kundalini, or the developing of the, inner alchemy and inner energy. At one time, some of these yogis will take on a beautiful complexion and almost like a female beaming, glowing countenance. And other times they might be totally manly and have a beard. I've seen several gurus that have gone through this. And it's just a, what it is just a balancing and an experiencing of the different energies, the yang energy and the yin energy, the male energy and the female energy. And they also are experiencing the inner lover, or the inner fusion of these two energies within themselves, which takes the whole thing out of the paradigm of having to look or perform or play a role or play a sexual role with somebody else, when that's all within you. It's all within you. Okay, and once you get that balance within you, then your twin soul or your soulmate or whatever will appear on the outside as well as it is on the inside, all right? So this stuff, although it seems complicated, I'm trying to make it uncomplicated here, and I'm trying to say that you're just a person, you're just a spirit in a body, male or female, and you can experience the opposite polarity, that's all. And if you experience the opposite polarity, that's a sign for you to identify that polarity, see it for what it is, and merge it with your other polarity. In other words, we get back to the battery again. A battery doesn't work on just positive or negative. It has both positive and negative. So just be, that's all. Just be, and try to adjust your consciousness to a level where you're aware of the different energies in your body, okay? If you choose to role play, or if you choose to go to an extreme, keep it to yourself, because it's an imbalance. And I am a firm believer that this imbalance has been perpetrated by outside sources, okay? From childhood, from exposure to deviant people, from exposure to deviant movies, television, all different kinds of things. This has been a programmed thing for the weaponization of this particular movement. And this isn't the first movement that's been weaponized and made to feel insecure, inadequate. They do this to everybody. They do this to races. They did this to the red man. They did this to the black man. They do this to every conceivable faction that you can imagine. It's a divide and conquer instead of a unifying things. Or a unifying thing, I should say. So we're seeing a weaponization of sex. We're seeing a weaponization of identity. We're seeing a weaponization of the male and the female. It's toxic. It has no place in a balanced outlook towards life and a balanced self-identification. Now, I've talked about standing in awareness, and I've talked about being the witness, and I've talked about the I self, the ego. This is another thing that is involved in how people identify. It's an ego thing, okay? It's a false conception of who you really are, because you really are not your ego. You really are not a man and woman. You're a higher awareness is what you are. You're a higher consciousness is what you are. You're a higher spiritual force. You're one with the Creator. And all this stuff that's going on this mundane, lower vibrational level has nothing to do with who you really are. Has not a darn thing to do with who you really are. So don't get so caught up in it. Don't get so full of yourself. Don't get so egotistical about, oh, they're doing this to me, and I'm going to do that to them, and I'm going to get back at them, and I'm going to make war on the people that are... It's absurd. It's juvenile. It's immature. And it's not spiritual. So anyway, I'm going to just probably leave it there today. I go out on a limb when I talk about this kind of stuff, because people are so confused and people are so off-center and imbalanced due to the situations that we're living in this world. And as a last thought, I will say there are other archontic forces at work here as well. So let's not get confused, okay, people? Let's not get divided. Let's not go off the deep end and think you got to kill others. That's what's wrong with this world. Ideologies, politics, religion, and now we're getting into the sexual identity thing, and now we're getting into things that should remain personal with you. And again, I'm not condemning anybody here. We're all a product of this sick society that we live in, okay? And we've all had experiences in life that could have affected us and traumatized us on all kinds of levels. But that's why it's so important to realize the reality or the truth of the matter. And the truth of the matter is we're spiritual. We're pure awareness. We're God, Goddess. And all this other stuff, all this confusion and chaos and guilt and fear and I got to be this or I don't have to be that, is all just a manifestation of the lower realm of confusion and chaos that has been imposed upon us in this world. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there today. I hope you get something out of this. Trying to explain this stuff when you're on a higher enlightened level. Trying to explain to people that they don't really need to become so identified with the I, self, the ego, and all the little machinations that go along with that is a task that I don't think a lot of people want to take on. But I'm out here as a truth teller and trying to at least give you my opinion. This is my opinion based on my studies, my spiritual practices, and experiences in the world. So I'll just leave it there today for you to think about. This is Thunder, the Desert Shaman. Adios.